IS 456 has guided Indian construction for decades. So why is the recent revision happening?
In the past 25 years, there has been such a mammoth change. What we have done this time, we've picked up the codes from across the world.
One of the most significant themes in this update is service life and durability.
Earlier, durability was only prescriptive. Durability has become quantitative. I'm not going to have too much of carbonation of my concrete. And then you're creating an acidic environment.
Why Western countries are using 200 grade and why India is using only up to like 80?
It's a cultural problem. How do we ensure that everybody wants to do a perfect job? We have still not been able to establish confidence at site.
I want to understand how AI is helping this industry.
So AI definitely is going to come, and I think if we were to come back and speak 5 years later, you would see that you really need only 1/5 of the number of people you have presently.
Because everybody's talking about how AI will keep these people and everybody else out of job.
What I would tell engineers as of today is that, please learn to be critical thinkers.
This series is dedicated to the fascinating world of concrete, a material we believe is the most trusted foundation for building our homes, our cities, and our future. We will bring you insights from structural consultants, architects, and industry leaders who live and breathe concrete. Let's Talk Concrete is where the conversations help shape the future of construction. And guiding this strength for decades in India has been IS 456, the cornerstone code for concrete design and construction. Its recent revision is not just a technical update, it's a defining moment for the future of our built environment. Today we explore what has changed, why it matters, and how it will reshape. For this engrossing discussion, we have with us today Ms. Alpa Sheth. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining us today on this podcast. Ms. Alpa Sheth is the Managing Director of VMS Consultants Private Limited, Mumbai, and one of India's most respected structural engineers. With over 35 years of experience and more than 700 projects to her credit, she also chairs BIS Special Structures Committee CED 38 and is a founding trustee of the Structural Engineering Forum of India, CEFI, a UC Berkeley postgraduate and fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering. IS 456 has guided Indian construction for decades. So why is the recent revision happening and what major changes have been introduced?
So we've been using this IS 456 since 2000. It's really been one of the best documents of BIS having maximum conformance, if I have to say that. But that was then, and this is now. So in the past 25 years, there has been such a mammoth change in terms of the research and development in materials, in concrete, or it is in the philosophy of structural design. And also, we need to see where the world has gone. Typically, most of the codes across the world are revised between 4 and 6 years. So we typically should have had at least 5 revisions in the past 25 years. But now we're making good. And what we have done this time is with the benefit of hindsight and all of this new knowledge, we've picked up the codes from across the world, whether it is the American codes, the Euro codes, the Australian, Canadian. We've seen what is available in state of art across the world. We've synthesized it with the way we use concrete, because India has a very unique way in how we use concrete. So we've used our indigenous practices, and together now this new code is being created. What is different? Earlier we would talk, the focus was mainly on strength, stability. We were talking a little bit about serviceability and just a passing reference to durability. But now there are 6 different criteria which have been introduced in this code. So safety, of course, comes first. And then together with that is serviceability and durability. Then there are 3 other criteria which have been introduced for the first time. And those are restorability, and the other criteria is integrity and robustness. So the last 3 criteria are not mandatory for every project that you do. They would be required for projects which are large public projects, projects which we want to last for a much longer time, 100, 200 years plus, buildings which you're not going to have an opportunity to go back and do them again and again.
One of the most significant themes in this update is service life and durability.
That's right.
I want to know how exactly is the service life of concrete defined by this code, and what factors influence it the most?
So we talk not about the service life of concrete, we talk about the service life of structures. So for example, if it's a normal 3-story, 4-story structure, service life of that can be 50 years. But let me tell you that even today, if you go along Marine Drive, those buildings have been standing there for the last 75 years.
Yeah.
These buildings have been done in concrete, some of the first buildings in Mumbai in concrete. And they've been there for 75 years. So we say service life is 50 years, but really we're not actually kind of demolishing these buildings. But as the code stands today, and even the revision, for any of these small buildings, we're saying the average service life is expected to be 50 years without any major repairs. So when we say a service life is 50 years, whether it is live loads, whether if there's an earthquake, then, for the prescribed earthquake loads or for the prescribed cyclonic loads, the building should be able to perform. So that is a service life. Now, we are now building 60 stories, 80 stories, 100-story buildings. You're not going to demolish them in 50 years, no way. So now that service life has been pushed to 75 years. You will have certain infrastructure projects which should have a service life of 100 years, 125 years, 150 years. If I want an extended service life, what do I need to do? So in such a case, you want to make sure that your buildings are durable, right? And also you want to bring in that your buildings have a very good integrity and robustness. Year service life or 100-year service life. The other point you will say is about durability. Now, when you're talking about durability, I want to ensure that I'm not going to have too much of carbonation of my concrete. I don't want to have too much of ingress of water, of carbon dioxide, and any of these materials which can then accelerate the whole process of corrosion. So that's a very simplistic way that I have explained, but there is a whole laundry list of what are the issues you need to see in terms of durability. And in this revision of the code, these have been prescribed.
And everybody's comparing new buildings with old buildings, and everybody's talking about how old buildings are more durable, they are still standing, and the new buildings, new construction is up, there are cracks appearing in it. So how IS 456 is helping new engineers, structural designers to overcome these issues?
So there are two aspects to it. One is design of the building and one is construction of the building. And together with that, there's this one truism that you can't legislate virtue, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is that there is the code and you expect people to follow it. You have rules also, you have about if you don't follow it, what can happen. So what I have found in recent times is that in the cities, especially the tier 1 cities, you have a very good compliance in terms of design of structures. What you may have some shortcomings is about the construction.
Speaking of performance, strength is always a big talking point. Always. The revised code has also included specifications for high strength concrete. Could you walk us through the grades it now covers and whether the limits like maximum cement content have been revised in the new code?
We've had a lot of discussions on what should be the maximum grade of concrete that should be included in the code. So typically up to M60, the 60 grade concrete, the behavior is quite well known. And we have sufficient expertise to ensure that the kind of concrete we would get would be having a very acceptable behavior. And the stress strain curve, it's not a sudden drop beyond having reached its limit. Beyond 60 grade, when they go to 70, 80, 90, 100, now people across the world are using even up to 200, right? There is a little bit of hesitancy to include grades beyond M80 in the code because some of the academics are not yet convinced, and I understand and agree with them partially that the stress strain curves of these grades of concrete have not yet been coming up to the levels we would like them to in terms of behavior. So maybe what we need to understand is that when we are going to go with higher grades of concrete, we will need to use different kinds of additives. We will need to use certain admixtures, certain other materials in it, which would help us to get an improved behavior in terms of stress strain. And it is a myth to say that if you want to have concrete which is of a higher grade, you need to use more of cement. I think that now a lot of engineers understand. What you would need is cementitious materials. So I think the stress in this code is not just about cement. It's about cementitious materials. Code this time is very, very fine-grained in discussing about it, because as I told you that one of the criteria is durability. So there is a very big chapter on durability which considers all of this, and for each of the different conditions that we have. So whether you are in the coastal region up to 50 kilometers from the sea coast, then what are the special conditions you have to look at? Yeah. And so on and so forth. There are a lot of these issues because it's about how dense your concrete is, but it's also in terms of the durability of concrete. You want to ensure that you don't have carbonation, right? So if you are in an environment which is high humidity, already you have a problem. You have hydrated calcite products, and then you're having carbon dioxide coming in, and then you're creating an acidic environment where you're going to initiate the corrosion of the reinforcement.
Because
right?
There is some may question about this as well, that why Western countries are using 200 grade and why India is using only up to like 80. They may ask this question.
So, I'll tell you one thing. We have still not been able to establish confidence at site in terms of whether we have a robust system to ensure quality control at our sites. So, as you rightly pointed out earlier, that why is it our new buildings have more cracks than our old buildings? First of all, now we are going in for, all your new buildings are M40 and above, and all your older buildings were M15, right? So there's a very big difference when you want to get higher grades of concrete. And if you think about it, your 3-story building had columns which were like, 500 by 500. Now a 10 or 12-story or 15-story building will have that size of a element. So we have gone smaller and sleeker. So we are actually stressing each of these elements much more now. And so therefore there are these challenges which would come. But I think the basic problem, it's a cultural problem. How do we ensure that everybody wants to do a perfect job? And I think the problem is more at sites. So we are not able to, so at the lab we are able to do M80 concrete, we are able to do M100 concrete. We are not able to achieve it at site because that amount of the pursuit for perfection, if we can get it culturally, I think it will be a great world for concrete. So we're struggling with that right now.
So we already spoke about strength. Now let's talk about durability, because it directly impacts longevity. So I want to know what code has in terms of durability of any structure, in terms of concrete, what kind of cement we are using, what are the changes in this revision, what benchmarks this code has set.
So as far as durability is concerned, as I said, it has a lot of requirements, which for the first time now, earlier durability was only prescriptive. Durability has become quantitative. So there are lots of equations that have been given. I hope that, the softwares which we are using for design are going to incorporate all these requirements. We don't really have to worry about it. But there are, in fact, a lot of requirements. What is going to be your maximum crack width? Earlier in the codes, it was that, if you did this, you didn't need to check your crack width. Now there are all these equations, you have to satisfy each of these equations. I'm saying, okay, even if I have satisfied all this maximum deformation, I still have to check my crack width. So there are all of these requirements which have come now new, and which is very good. As I said, that this code is a far more sophisticated code than we had earlier. The challenge is going to be how are structural engineers going to be able to implement and satisfy all the requirements unless they get help from some software, because their fees are not going to increase. I don't think so. And then if they have to do double the work, it's going to be a bit challenging.
So ma'am, let's talk about AI now, because AI is helping each and every industry in the world, right? Everybody is talking about artificial intelligence and they're using it in so many ways. I want to understand how AI is helping this industry.
I think AI has a lot of scope in this industry. Unfortunately, I think we are like dinosaurs, the construction industry. Yes, my father's a structural engineer. And he graduated in, I think, 1956 or so.
So my father studied R.S. Agrawal for mathematics. I also did and my son is also reading R.S. Agrawal only.
Because those are fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
Core. It doesn't change, right? So that's very true. So in some ways, you're grounded in certain basic physics. But from that, there are so many opportunities now to automate. And automation will be very good because it will bring in precision. I'll give an example of a project. They were using MAT concrete. And at site, you were not getting more than M40. Okay, so see, MAT concrete, you will not get MAT strength within 28 days. It's going to take 56 days. Now the codes don't even actually address that. Now this new code is going to address it, thankfully. What happens is that they've not achieved the strength, and the site engineers are too scared to tell the management, and you've done 4 more floors. By the time everybody realizes you're not going to get MAT no matter what, and it's an 80-story building. What are you going to do, right? Today we are creating more and more, especially in civil engineering, more and more engineers who think it's okay to be technical clerks or technicians rather than critical thinkers in engineering. So that's a big problem. And that actually is also going to cause a lot of redundancies because AI is going to come in, and a lot of work these engineers are doing, AI can so easily replace, and it won't be making any mistakes. Any
just like
mistakes.
every other industry.
Just like every other industry, right? So and there is a lot of scope for doing that. And I would say that about 70 to 75% of everything, whether it is design, whether it is the technologies we are using at the sites, whether it is quality assurance and quality control procedures, I think all of them can be controlled very adequately and competently by AI. So AI definitely is going to come, and I think if we were to come back and speak 5 years later, you would see that you really need only 1/5 of the number of people you have presently to be doing all the work we are doing.
Because everybody is talking about how AI will keep these people and everybody else out of job.
Yeah, so then there's going to be universal basic income or whatever. I don't know. But I think what I would tell engineers as of today is that, please learn to be critical thinkers. Everything else, you have other tools, whether it is tools of, ChatGPT or everything else, Gemini, whatever, that can give you all that information. What it cannot give you is wisdom. Innovation and wisdom, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you're a critical thinker, you'll get that. There's no other way. That's about our survival.
So, ma'am, let's talk about some myths in this industry. There are several myths in every industry. This business also has some myths. एक जो myth है इस इंडस्ट्री को लेकर वो ये है कि आप जितना अच्छा स्टील लगाओगे उतनी ज़्यादा ड्यूरेबिलिटी और स्ट्रेंथ आएगी.
So yes, there are even civil engineers, okay, think कि जितना ज़्यादा स्टील डालोगे और मजबूत होता है. And that is such a tragedy because your first class in reinforced concrete teaches you that an under-reinforced section is far better and safer than an over-reinforced section. Abhi ye to basic, this is like one of the first things you are taught. So as I was just telling you, what happens is, I'm working, let's say, in some PWD and I'm the junior most engineer, the little most cog in the wheel. I've designed all of it exactly perfectly. I go to my boss has no time. So he says, हाँ क्या किया है? हाँ बेटा ठीक होगा लेकिन एक और सलिया डाल दे. So then that one side. Then it goes to my boss's boss. That guy is busy, trying to answer questions to, the politicians or whatever. So he says, हाँ ठीक है और एक सलिया डाल दो. By the time it goes to the guy who has to sign it off, the amount of steel is double than what I, as this little engineer, had designed. and mine was right, and this is wrong and it's unsafe. Why is it unsafe? Because if you have more steel, then the failure is not going to be, when that particular element has to fail, the failure does not get initiated from the steel because you have too much steel there. It gets initiated in the concrete because it's a reinforced concrete member. Now, any failure which gets initiated in concrete is a brittle failure. And a failure which gets initiated because of inadequate or under-reinforced steel, it will show you some warnings, it will show you some cracks. So you're like, yaar, isme to koi problem hai. Always want to ensure that you don't provide too much steel in your beams. You don't provide too much of steel even in your columns. Provide what is required. And for that, you need to have confidence in your engineering.
So guys, whoever wants to be in this business, please stick to basics. Right, ma'am?
Absolutely.
So with this Mythbuster, we have come to the end of our inaugural episode of Nuvoco Let's Talk Concrete, and I believe मैंने बहुत कुछ सीखा है आपसे और हमारी audience ने, viewers ने भी बहुत कुछ सीखा है. क्या होगा? What do you have to say about this podcast?
It's really been my privilege to have been the first guest on this program, and I think it's a great initiative. I think it's good that a building materials manufacturer has come out and has been proactive and realized our duty towards a community is not just about giving good products, but it's also our, I suppose, social responsibility to spread knowledge and have more of such outreach programs. And I think this is a great medium because the young are all the time fixated with social media. So this is the best way of getting all our information and knowledge across to them. And I hope that this is a very successful series. It was really my pleasure to come.
Ma'am, I believe with this first episode, wonderful episode of Nuvoco Let's Talk Concrete, everybody in this industry will follow IS 456 to the core, be an innovator and be a critical thinker as well, as you said.
I would really love that to happen. And I would just want to tell all the future and present users of IS 456 that the code may change from a 100-page code to a 500-page code. Feeling that now we're on par with the rest of the world in terms of how we look and think about concrete.
Alpa ma'am, it was a pleasure to have you on our inaugural episode of Nuvoco Let's Talk Concrete. Thank you so much for taking the responsibility of embedding deeper thought around concrete and the industry at large. Because while building for today is important, building for tomorrow is essential. Stay tuned to our channel. Please like, share and comment on this video and we will surely respond to all your comments. Subscribe to our channel for more such videos and please press the bell icon as soon as possible. Thank you so much. So ma'am, as I said, thank you so much for your time today. आज हमने बहुत कुछ सीखा and this is a small token of appreciation for you and for your valuable time today.